Welcome back to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Glenn Caruso, head football coach at the University of St. Thomas, and so happy you tuned in. You know, quite often we get so caught up in the daily grind of work or coaching or recruiting that we don't often take time to reflect. I would encourage everybody to take just a few minutes each day to try and see the bigger picture, to stop and realize that in the end, we're going to be judged on what we choose to believe, who we choose to love, and what we decide to leave behind in the hearts and minds of not just our players, not just our coworkers, but also our children. And remember, if we're doing it right, we're coaching football for life.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Coach Kevin Hambly. Coach Hambly is the head volleyball coach at Stanford University. Greetings, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's truly an honor to be with you.
Coach, you're coming up on your fourth season there at Stanford. You've won 2 national championships while there, 3 Pac-12 conference titles during that time. Prior to coming to Stanford, you were the head coach at University of Illinois for 8 seasons and successful with that team and took them to a shot at the national title. And in general, you've been in the volleyball coaching profession for almost 25 years. So you have a wealth of knowledge when you talk about leadership, you talk about successful and effective leadership and organizational culture. So I'm happy to have you on today, Coach.
Well, thanks for having me on. With the group of people you've had on your podcast, I feel unworthy, but I appreciate it.
I doubt that. You're very worthy, Coach. I have you on for a couple of reasons, but first I want to talk kind of about culture and leadership. Taking over a program such as Stanford volleyball and just getting to Stanford athletics is a department, and specifically that volleyball program was successful for a long time. And Stanford volleyball for the lack of a better word, is an institution in the institution of college volleyball, right? And so you take over a successful program and it has its ups and downs, right? You come in and really the question is, don't mess this up, Coach Hambly, right? You got a good thing going already. Come in and keep it going. So talk to us about some of the ups and downs you have in terms of leadership and culture. When you got there in 2017, the things you dealt with in your first year or so as you try to keep a successful culture going, but you're your own leader. So you also have to develop your own culture for your leadership style.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's a great question. And the first thing Bernard said to me, because they won the year before I got here, of course, was like, all you have to do is just do what you did last year and you'll be fine. So like, there's no pressure, and Bernard's awesome and has, great perspective on how hard it is to win national championships and all that, but it was a good joke. But anyway, I think the first year, for me, getting to know the players is a really important thing. And like when you start talking about culture, in order to really help kind of shape the culture, I feel like we really need to get to know all the people that are involved in the culture, and especially the athletes. And when I came into the group in 2017, like full disclosure, I don't think I did a really good job with the culture. I was trying to get some things going, but I felt like it was a little bit of a struggle for me because I just didn't know the players well enough, and I didn't get to know them in a way where I could kind of push the right buttons with them. And so it was pretty frustrating because the culture, when you talk about culture, a lot of people talk about when I was going through the hiring process, they were asking me, so what does your culture look like? And I thought that was a really interesting question because I don't think I imprint culture on a program. I think I bring principles to what I think is an effective culture. And then the people that are part of that, mostly the athletes, kind of make those principles their own and embody those principles and maybe add principles to that or help me change those principles. So I think for me, the first year, one of the reasons why, in my opinion, we didn't win was because I couldn't get to know the players well enough to kind of help guide that process. And it took us a year to get that done. And if I look back, I would have liked to have kind of fast-tracked that in some way and maybe try to be a little bit more aggressive. But I think that was frustrating just because I've always felt like the players don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And so I couldn't get to that. Yeah.
How did you work through that? I mean, that's an ongoing issue, right? You want to get to know the players, and obviously you got to, I worked with football coaches a long time, and coaches always say I had to get my guys in, right? But, you get in there and they already know how to win. This is a high-level team you walked into. So tell me how you got through that challenge, because, it sounds like you said it took a little longer than you wanted it to, but how did you work through that?
Yeah, vulnerability and honesty from my standpoint. I just said, like, when we got back and, we finished our season over Christmas break and we lost in the semifinals to Florida, and then everyone scatters, and goes home. First meeting we got back, I just said, I was just honest and vulnerable with them. I said, look, I didn't do a good enough job with you guys. I need to do a better job of imprinting the culture. And here are the things I started to lay out, the things that I thought we were missing. We talked to the principals, but I wasn't holding them accountable to that, and I wasn't developing them the way that I wanted to. And then we talked about it, and I was very open, and they were eager to, after they lost, certainly more eager than they would have been maybe if we won, to change those things. And we got to work, starting to work on how we communicated together, kind of how we eliminate drama from our program. Mostly it was just about just being honest and open, and they were very eager to make change. And it went pretty smoothly after that, to be honest.
Ended up being pretty successful. Do you think that it had something to do with the pressure of taking over a program that just won a national championship, a successful athletics department? Do you think that is what the big challenge was in terms of getting to know the players? I mean, obviously that was very important to you, and you realized it as you worked through the season.
I don't think it was the pressure. I think, I was leaving. I came from a different culture where we were at Illinois, where we were a program that was kind of cyclical as far as our success. And I think it'll be that way because you get good athletes and you train them, and then if you can have some good years. But this one, they were just so used to winning. And so I instead of just coming in and saying, hey, here's how I think we need to win a national championship, they had done that. I was kind of sitting back and watching how other people did it and what they did in the past, and like allowing them to kind of guide it and see what it needed to be at Stanford as opposed to what it needed to be at Illinois. Because the culture at Illinois, like the principles are the same, but the cultures are different because the people are different. It's a different kind of student here. But I wouldn't say it was the pressure. It was more of like, hey, these guys have done it, so I kind of want to sit back and see. And then about 3/4 of the way through the season, I was like, no, this isn't working for me. It's not working for my coaching style. And I knew then that we were going to be in trouble, and it was just too late. I needed some time to kind of catch up on that. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It's interesting. And then obviously you still made it to the Final Four, or the semifinals is what they call it in volleyball. So, but you turned it around, and next 2 seasons you win the national title. So I imagine if there were some young girls on the team when you first took over, had grown to either juniors or seniors by the time you finished last season and won the title, they probably saw some of the differences. Do you think any of them, I try to think about as a student athlete, and are you thinking about culture at that time? Are you thinking about leadership or our coach's leadership style? Did you ever hear from any of them now that they've either moved on, or they're coming into their senior season, or they've graduated and moved on, in terms of the transition you made from back then to where the team is now?
Yeah, I mean, my second year here in 2018, there was a lot of conversations about how much more they liked the culture. How there was less drama. They were more honest and open with everybody, with each other. And I just had a meeting just before I hopped on this call with you, where I was meeting with my lone senior who was a freshman that first year, and we were talking about that. And that's the one thing that we were talking about most, is like, we're trying to shape a new culture here with this new group. And she was talking about how bad it was in 2017, and like how much it changed and how much they grew, and what they've learned from it, like how to communicate, how to be honest, like what real honesty looks like, and then you can do that in a way that's not always confrontational if it's received the right way. And really, really, truly being honest about where you are is really hard, especially for 18, 19-year-olds. But I think that's the thing that, when talking to this 21-year-old that's sitting there who's mature for her age, and that's the thing she's talking about. It's like, we just have to make sure we're really honest. And we have a very, very young group. We have 10 sophomores and freshmen on our team right now, and her and I were just talking about how do we imprint that knowledge on them right now. And she's eager to make that change because she knows what it's like when we don't. So, but every athlete that I've talked to that went through when the culture wasn't good to what it is now have all expressed just how that's the difference. That's the difference between being a championship team and not being a championship team. It's not talent. It's all about the culture.
I imagine those conversations with the senior talking about, okay, coach, how are we going to do this for this squad we have this year? It has to be a rewarding conversation for a coach leadership like yourself.
Well, she gets it, right? So that's the part that's exciting, is that, and then she's willing to do the work. If she's calling the meeting with me to have that meeting, she's willing to do the work, and that's of course really exciting, but also necessary, I think, too. Like you have to, in my opinion, the best way I can lead is that to, educate and teach my leaders how to be great leaders where they can make the program their own. And certainly our seniors last year felt that way. And I'm excited because my one senior this year, she already feels that way, as do the juniors that are looking to kind of take over the leadership roles in our program. They look like it's their program and they're taking care of it. And to me, if that's happening, then I'm doing my job the right way.
Which is excellent. So a good friend of mine, his name is Jeremiah Tiffin. He's a head volleyball coach at University of North Dakota. And he told me when I mentioned to him that I was going to have you on, I was like, well, tell me what I should pull out of him. Sure. And he was like, well, you definitely want to talk about organizational culture and leading a successful team. So we've talked about that. And he also talked, and I followed him. We were in grad school together. And so I saw him. When he was doing club volleyball, he became the head coach at a junior college team, became an assistant at Baylor, and went on to become a head coach at the NAIA team. Now he's head coach in Division I, and obviously building his career. And one of his things, he used to help me at the American Football Coaches Association National Convention. So professionalism was important to him. He saw how the coaches carried themselves, saw how the association carried themselves, and tried to grow it. And he has always talked about women and minorities in the profession. And I know that is something that is important to you in terms of the volleyball coaching profession. And you look at the makeup of the girls who play, and it's a diverse makeup, but then you look at the people who are coaching the position, and it's not as diverse as people would like it to be. And I know that's important to you. And I think you have a program where you're trying to grow the pipeline of people of color in the volleyball coaching profession. Talk to me about that, how you're doing that, and why that's important to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think obviously with everything that's happening with the social injustice, it's really brought this to light, where I feel like there's some ideas that we've been talking about, a few of us coaches, but like with all this, we feel like it's just time that we have to start helping. And this doesn't solve the problem of the social injustice, but at least it's on people's minds where we can get people behind this. But one of the things that we've talked about, like with the problem in coaching, is a lot of times when it's about the hiring process. We've always looked at that, and there's some really cool rules. Like the WCC just came out with that rule where they have to interview a minority, which I think is a great rule. But like for a lot of us coaches, for a lot of coaches that are head coaches looking to hire assistants in some of those entry level positions, as opposed to WCC where they're looking to hire head coaches. Those ADs looking to hire head coaches. We're looking to hire, assistant coaches. A lot of coaches, I wouldn't put myself in this category because I do know a lot of minority coaches, just don't know a lot of minority coaches. And so how do we resolve that? And so what we're working on doing right now at the Pac-12 is a diversity mentorship program, which is a year-long mentorship where we will connect a minority coach with a head coach in a program inside the Pac-12. And then with that, we're raising enough money where we can fly them out 2 times a year to come and hang out and be a part of the program and be around the team and to see what it's like to be a coach too. And then we're also going to have them work our camps, and then we're going to go to the convention. We're going to go to the convention with them and introduce them to all the right people that we need to introduce them. So the thinking is like teach them the skills necessary to be a coach, let them see what the expectations are for being a coach, and then help them so that when we get to the convention, which is where most of the hiring happens in our sport, at least the introductions that are going to happen in hiring take place at that convention, where we're going to go and spend time with our mentees at that point, and almost like feel like part of our staff, and we can go help them make the connections necessary to get into coaching, And so I think we're all really excited about it. We've raised half the money right now. We're working on it. It's like $15,000, for us. I know that's like maybe compared to what some of the basketball coaches are throwing around, not the same amount of money, but for us, we feel like for that amount of money, we can pull off an incredible program and really have an impact on creating more candidates that are prepared to be in the diverse candidates that are prepared to get into the coaching ranks. I think there's been a lot of opportunities for scholarships to go to our convention and all that stuff, and that's a great program. But from those candidates that I've talked to that have been a part of that or going to the convention, they don't feel like they have had the skills necessary where they can represent themselves in a way to actually get a job. And so we're hoping to kind of overcome that.
Right. Now, are these assistant coaches who are already in the profession, or these graduate assistants, are women who just finished playing and want to get in, or
all
men, I guess, who want to coach?
Yeah, all the above. Whatever it's going to be. We got a group that's going to decide who the top candidates are, and this is something we hope to do we didn't put a timeline on it in perpetuity. And so I think for us, and we're also hoping it spreads, to other conferences. I know we just got a proposal out there, and the Big Ten's looking at doing something, and WCC is looking at doing something, and I know the Ohio Valley is looking at doing it. So we're hoping this program spreads, and the AVCA, which is our coaches association, is 100% on board. But we're open to any candidates, no age limits. Of course, it would be great if it was some former athletes from, and some of the things we want to target is some of our former athletes. And then we also want to target some of the historically black colleges and universities and see if we can get those guys involved. So, when we get together and we start to put our group together to make those decisions about who those top candidates are, that's kind of where we're going to target, but we're open to just the best candidates that we feel like we could help the most, really.
All right. So they'll get an aspect of understanding organizational culture and leadership in the 2 visits when they go, I guess, for the lack of a better word, shadow a head coach on campus, right?
Yeah. I left a couple other things out where we're going to do this impact, like this coaching thing. True North we're partnering with True North, where they're going to teach kind of how to manage yourself. So that's a 6-week course they're going to be able to take. And then we're also going to do bi-monthly Zooms, one with your head coach, that's your mentee, or an assistant coach, and then another head coach from our conference that's going to we're going to work through topics that they're going to share. So there's a lot going on there. So, I mean, I guess for the interest of time, I didn't want to go through all the things, but I like those things are some more mentee mentorship opportunities, and the whole group, all the mentees will be a part of those Zoom calls.
If you were to identify I guess the best outcome would be somebody getting into coaching and become a head coach at some point in the future. But is the entirety of the program broken down into pillars or some type of principle? Like, here you'll learn this is the leadership aspect, this is running the team, here's the professionalism aspect, here's the networking aspect. Here, you know what I mean? Because it sounds like you hit some of those things in the few details that you've given me so far.
And I think you touched on. I mean, it is that. We haven't created like that kind of the pillars or have something official, but it's basically like develop relationships with more minority coaches, or head coaches and programs develop relationships with more minority coaches, because we all know we hire who we know, and we recommend who we know, to educate and develop coaches to be prepared and understand what the profession is, and then to create more networking opportunities for them. And I think those are the 3 things that we targeted and we felt like were the most important things to help bring a more diverse pool of candidates to the volleyball coaching world.
Right, it is. And then once they get in, then it becomes about, okay, here's how you successfully lead, right? Here's how you successfully present yourself. It's interesting. I did a lot of that type of stuff when I worked with the American Football Coaches Association. Of course, Coach Tabb, who was the executive director, was all about that type of thing, professionalism. Let's try to get more coaches opportunities. Let's, all those types of things. And I know Kathy DeBoer, had her on the podcast. Of course, she's a Spartan like I am, Michigan State in the Big Ten, and that's kind of how we connected. But she's been there a long time, and you mentioned she's involved in it and a part of it. Tell me about their aspect of it, because they could provide support in terms of the network of coaches who are at the convention or providing hotel rooms or those kind of things. Talk to me about their involvement.
Yeah, they are donating the membership and the convention fee for that, for our convention, which is as I mentioned, a huge place to get hired and to network and all that stuff, as well as they have programming at the convention that's unique to a diversity scholarship program that they've developed over the years. This we look at as just a supplement to that. The diversity scholarship program is a great program that's going on at the AVCA. We're looking at this as a supplement to that, kind of a robust supplement to help them prepare, so when they get into that and they network with other minority coaches from all across the country, and they've been working with that, we can hopefully have a better shot to be prepared for that job. I think that's a challenge that we've heard, is that when people actually get the job, sometimes they haven't been prepared, and that we want to help as much as we can with that as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like you mentioned, when you took the job at Stanford the first year, the challenge of you're never going to know how to be a head coach or even in the athletic director chair. I mean, once you get there, it's, you're trying to catch a train that's already moving, right? You're trying to hop on a fast moving train, but that's a challenge, right? Are you prepared to understand how to make tough decisions? Are you prepared to deal with resistance that may come from players? Are you prepared to deal with administration? Are you, hiring your coaches? What about if you got a coach that might say something a little different than what those kind of things. So there's a whole lot you have to deal with. And I think the experience you're going to give them will be great. And another thing that will be great as we talk through this, you said there will be Zoom meetings. Now, what we did with the AFCA was, right, you mentored them at the convention and you might have talked on the phone, or you go work at camp or a clinic, but that was about it, right? And you probably talked on the phone. But with the outcome of the pandemic is like, well, with the Zoom thing, it's a whole another aspect of a touch point, right? In terms of communicating with people. So that brings a great aspect to it, where you can, at any given moment, they can get on and you can do some type of mentoring or networking, or they can actually see how you're handling a situation as the head coach. I think. Right.
And that's what we talked about with our head coaches. So like, they get a chance to talk to their mentee all the time. But then there's 6 other great coaches in the Pac-12 that they're going to be able to connect with, and learn from them. And they have a different way of going about it, and allow them, an hour, 90 minutes to really talk through what the profession is to those coaches and what are the lessons that they learned. And we just feel like as broad as we can make that educational opportunity, the better it is going to be for these mentees.
Yeah. Well, Coach, it sounds like an excellent program. I'm sure the people who who are participating in it are probably very happy to see that you're somebody of your stature and the success you've had is participating in it. So that means when somebody like you participates in it, type of program like this, that means it's important to the profession, as opposed to just a certain people who haven't, for the lack of a better word, had the success you have. But when you're participating in it, that means it's important to the profession. So I'm sure.
We have a bunch of great coaches in the Pac-12, and they all are really eager to be a part of it. Every single one of them was excited to do it. So it's really cool to see people that we recognize the problem and are willing to do what it takes to make some change.
Be a part of it. Well, that's excellent, Coach. I appreciate you coming on and telling us about the program you're in, and I think it sounds like it's going to be a success.
I hope so. We're hoping so. We'll do the best we can. But I appreciate you allowing me to come on and talk about that. Thanks a lot.
That was Coach Kevin Hambly. He's the head volleyball coach at Stanford University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.